Hey guys, Nuzzy here and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be talking about another set of people or a set of characters and giving them matchups and describing why I like them. We're going to be covering a matchup for every single special grade sorcerer within Jujutsu Kaisen. Those of you who are Jujutsu Kaisen fans will be sitting here wondering how this is going to be at all a video topic because there are only 4 special grade sorcerers, but I'm going to list off all the matchups I like for each character, but only go into detail about the one I do like the most for all of them. So if you're going to enjoy this video, then make sure to like and subscribe. I will include a Google Doc in the top comment of this video and also in the description, basically where it will lead you to the Google Doc where it shows off all of the connections for all the matchups here, not just the ones I go over. So, for example, if you think a matchup works better, or if you are curious what the connections are for one matchup that I don't, say the connections for, you can go in the description and look at those. So, without further ado, let's start off with Toji. Toji for Shigiro. I will say, at first I did not really know what matchup to give him, but after looking into it a bit, there's actually quite a lot alike. There is that one fake character who I'm just not going to try and pronounce his name. We all know what happens when I try and pronounce names in this channel. It never goes well, which has a bucket load of connections. My second favourite is Zabuza from Naruto, with the general vibe of them being mercenaries and ruthless assassins and having a lot more to it than just that, but that's the general, gist of it, I suppose. There's then also Garo, which I did think about for another person on this list, but has a lot more connections with Toji than it does with that person. There's also then Rodagain from JoJo. I haven't, read Steel Ball Run yet, crucify me, I should read it at some point, but this matchup does have a fair few connections as well, but my favourite matchup for Toji is Toshi Furigiro. How did I mispronounce his name? His name's written on the page. My favourite matchup for Toshi Shigiro is Toshi Furigiro versus Stain from My Hero Academia. The core theme is it's a hero killer versus a sorcerer killer. They're katana-wielding men who battle against the strongest beings in their verse, using their skill, their intelligence, and their vast assortment of weapons to make up for their lacking of power. Both of them begin their stories in a prequel story to a new gen anime or manga, being My Hero Academia Vigilantes, and also the Star Plasma Vessel arc, where they're both presented as ruthless killers, Stain being a killing anti-hero and Toji being an assassin, often going up against powerful, high-profile targets, being sorcerers and super powerful criminals. They both eventually run into the most powerful figures within their worlds, a sorcerer and a former hero turned vigilante, being Gojo and Knuckle Duster, people who end up defeating them and in the process taking their body apart. Kind of. Knuckle Duster, just kind of removed Stain's nose and Gojo just obliterated Toji's arm. Both of them did battle against multiple incredibly skilled, powerful sorcerers or heroes who were aiming to protect the person from them, being Todoroki, Izuku, and Ida trying to protect Native from Stain, and Geto and Gojo trying to protect Amane from Stain, or from Toji. Including a particularly powerful person who at the time was much more inexperienced due to their age, who would go on to be one of the strongest characters in the series, being Gojo and Deku. Both were taken out of the story via death/believed death, with the media believing Stain had died and Toji actually dying. However, were brought back at some point in the story later on, with Stain escaping his prison and Toji being reincarnated. This leads to them meeting up with someone very important to them, being Megumi and All Might, after of which they once lead the story again, with Toji killing himself and Stain just disappearing. Both of them fight using incredible power and skill and intelligence due to the fact that their powers are rather lacking. They don't have crazy powers like Deku or Gojo, so more rely on their more mundane resources of power like weapons and their vast, incredible arsenal, usually of bladed weapons like katanas or knives. Despite this, they do have some supernatural ability, a grotesque one which involves them digesting something, Stain being able to lick blood of people and paralyze them, and Toji having a cursed spirit which stores weapons inside of him, and that Toji can digest and hide them in people. Both of them also earned the titles of something killer, being the hero killer and the sorcerer killer. This is my favourite for Toji, mostly because of my connections to Stain and Toji individually, but yeah, any other matchups here do also have a plenty amount of connections, so I wouldn't exactly blame you if this wasn't your favourite. Why is it taking so long to load? I just scrolled down. Next for Yuta Okkotsu. He's one of my favourite characters from Jujutsu Kaisen, but finding a matchup for him was kind of hard for me. Firstly, there's Jotaro Kujo, and it does generally vibe, especially with they're both their stand and spiritual ghost protecting them, but it doesn't quite fit for me, especially considering Jotaro has Oi Todo, which is better and, is the same series as Yuta. There's then also Koichi from My Hero Academia Vigilantes, but there's not that much to it. It's, it generally vibes, but beyond that, there's not much. There's then also Rin Okamura, which, I think it's an okay matchup. I've not watched Blue Exorcist, so I can't exactly say that I'm super, deep-rooted connected within this matchup, but, there's that. There's then Asa from Chainsaw Man, who's definitely the character I like the most out of the characters here for Yuta that I've picked out. But despite the amount of connections, it doesn't click for me as much as it probably should, so I'm just not the biggest fan of it. So the matchup that I've picked to be my favourite for Yuta is Yuta versus Kamen Rider Revenants from Kamen Rider. Both suffered a tragic, violent accident as kids, and their wish to save a loved one. Their wish to save a loved one manifested as a demon that entered a contract with them for the sake of protection. At a much older age, they'd fight side by side along with their demon partner, but can link directly to them to power up. You could also make the argument that basic vice stamps are purified from Deadman, used to the equivalent of cursed tools that Yuta uses. There's also an interesting deeper aspect revolving around their goals. Iki willingly gave up his soccer dreams, or football dreams, if you're normal, to take care of his family and their bathhouse so their goals could survive, but also considers himself Japan's #1 busybody. I can't read my own script, damn it. And had to lead to solve others' problems for them. Yuta was too scared of hurting others and isolated himself in the process until he was confronted for living without goals of his own, which caused him to realise he desired to become a person who could help out others in danger and feel like he belonged somewhere. There's also a foundation for the fact that both of their partners grew to be loving. Yuta desires to set Rika free and the contract between them, whereas Rika wants Vice and him to coexist. I've not watched Kamen Rider, so again, I'm not super invested within this matchup, but the connections are better than I think the rest of these matchups are for Yuta. So yeah, that's why I picked it. Suguru Geto, quite the antagonist. There's Van Cleese, which has the most amount of connections here out of all of the matchups I've got here, but I just don't know who Vlad Cleese is. There's also then Grindelwald and Garo, who vibe, and I've been told there are a ton of connections, but I can't find them for the life of me. There's then also Keiichi Mogami from Mob Psycho, with the general, gist of them being two antagonists from a series about hunting and killing cursed spirits and absorb cursed spirits into them. But my favourite for Geto is Voldemort from Harry Potter. There are two male main antagonists in a world of sorcerers, and believe those who without magic powers are useless scum and deserve to be killed. Despite their evil, they have built up large dark armies that will religiously do their bidding. They both attack schools dedicated to helping sorcerers learn their powers, and one that they attended when they were younger. They both fight and eventually are killed by the main protagonist, and both come back after their supposed deaths to bring the world into chaos after defeating the strongest character in the verse, a white-haired teacher to the main cast, which causes the world to then fall into darkness, being Gojo and Dumbledore. If it wasn't for Orochimaru existing, this would be my favourite for Voldemort, and it is my favourite for Geto. Unless you take the black hole feat into account that happened recently, this is a debatable matchup, but again, if you take the black hole feat into account, then it's not, so, it is what it is.
You better watch that mouth of yours, because I don't need any monkeys like you in the world that I'm in. And I believe that such great power ought to be used to create great opportunities.
I fashioned myself a new name. A name I knew wizards everywhere would one day fear to speak when I became the greatest sorcerer in the world.
No one will ever again question my power.
And finally, Satoru Gojo. There's Gojo versus Uraha, which is really good, but I've not seen Bleach, unlike the, matchup I've picked for it, so, that's kind of the main thing that kind of separated the two. Gojo versus Gyro is generally quite fun, and I've talked about it a little bit, like in previous videos. There's then also Gojo versus Dumbledore, which mostly works between, Gojo versus, Geto versus Voldemort as a contrast, but I do have some connections besides that, and it does work quite well, but if you've been the channel around for enough time, you already know what matchup I'm going to say. It's Gojo versus Kakashi. They are two male anime characters with white hair who teach people. Both come from a bloodline of notable people, but who are undoubtedly the strongest of said bloodline. They are known for being the teacher of the main three characters. The main character has a demon inside of him, a loudmouth female character, and a guy from a cool clan. Most of Gojo and Kakashi's powers come from their unique and overpowered eyes, which come across and are well known across the world due to their power. Also, the masks on their face are pretty iconic. What about Gojo versus Makima? I've yet to have a public statement on this that's not on my Discord server, so what's my opinions of Gojo Makima? It is okay. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just okay. Every opinion I see of this matchup is either people saying it's the best gift given to us by Jesus himself or the worst thing that man has ever done. Personally, I sit in the middle. I just think it's okay. And yeah, that was it for this video, longer than I thought it would be, to be fair. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, comment below what your favourite matchup is for each character here, and I'll see you all next time.